Fix the country. The campaign that has taken the country by storm. On Twitter, on Facebook, on social media, that has in excess of 11 to 12 million Ghanaians. There's been a mammoth rallying ground in support of hashtag Fix the Country. The police got an injunction, a very bizarre injunction, stopping the demonstration. But Fix the Country is alive. What do they stand for, and what do they seek to achieve? Will they achieve their aim? And why can't a Muslim student fast in a public Christian school? We understand it's a rule that applies to all, not only Muslims. But what is the problem? Operation Halt Part 2. Is it winning the Galamsey fight? As it goes around the country, seizing machinery, excavators, and setting them alight. We'll be right back to deal with the vexed matters. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. I'm your host, Samson Ladi Anyanini, and here is Samson's take. And today I ask, make the law fix these. My plan was to talk about two things. Why we ban seized excavators without recourse to the law, and how our national security, some call it regime security, could not stop a Christ Embassy COVID-19 super spreader convention. How about World Press Freedom Day, as we debate return to a culture of silence questionings? The dilemma is not unusual, especially as some of you send me messages asking that I treat particular subjects of interest each week. Let me try a cocktail. I ask, what is the wisdom in setting seized excavators on fire when the law directs that they should be distributed among state entities that need them? The seizure implies the owners or users have broken the law on mining or some other law. The culprits must therefore be put before court, as must happen in an orderly society governed by the rule of law. The law, as amended in 2015, then requires the court, after it has convicted the wrongdoers, to order the state to confiscate any equipment or product it seized from the wrongdoer, allocate them, and then publish in the Gazette, call it the official state bulletin, the fact of the allocation within 60 days after giving it out. Why does the state seem to have difficulties in following the laws it makes by itself for its own purposes? Excavators are expensive and are not made for Galamsey. Some local authorities procure excavators at great cost, which they use in building roads and other development work for the good of the community. I mean, the state buys and hires excavators for use for the public good. Who is it that believes it is wisdom to ban things you need and which you have acquired for free, to spend a fortune to buy them? It does not sound like running a democracy. and acting lawfully when public officers declare publicly that, I quote, "We will burn the excavators. If you don't like it, take us to court." What an indictment. What a shame to hear the state, with its awesome powers, insist that seized excavators, if not burnt, would find their way back into illegal use. Is this a failed state? If we do not need an uprising to change a government we do not like, we do not need extrajudicial means to secure law and order. Not in the commendable fight to fight the illegal mining we lost control over for political expediency. And number two, I ask, just how is it that such a mammoth convention in the center of the national capital, involving busing of congregants from across the country, escaped the supposed watchful eye of the national security? I mean, a meeting of 10,000 people. The same national security that allegedly found ACP Agozo and others secretly plotting to destabilize the government. If nobody will answer for this, then a lot needs fixing in this country. The police announced a search for the church-going lawbreakers days after the event and after public outrage. Large religious gatherings are prohibited and church services have been limited to only 2 hours with the 1 meter social distancing rule. A breach is punishable by 12,000 to 60,000 Ghana cedis, or in addition to that, it could also be 4 to 10 years in jail. Thursday, police announced charging 3 leaders of the church and a manager of the Fantasy Dome. Sadly, they are charged under an EI that expired 4 months ago. One issued in February, EI 37, also expired last month. What is applicable now is EI 135, issued on the 29th of April 2021. Think India, while talking to me about how politicians also breach the law during the 2020 election campaigns. I ask, finally, I must repeat that press freedom is no license for mercenary, dirty political propaganda, libel and slander in the name of journalism. It is also not a lazy, uncritical conveyor belt business for people who do not or fail to appreciate the privileged and hallowed yet onerous duty in Article 162, Clause 5 of the Constitution, which says all agencies of the mass media shall at all times be free to uphold the principles, provisions, and objectives of this Constitution, and shall uphold the responsibility and accountability of the government to the people of Ghana. If you recklessly and maliciously destroy reputations, you must suffer the lawful consequences. You ought not be shouting a culture of silence. We must practice independent, credible, and fearless journalism, honoring the ethical code. Our society needs its plain-talking, thorough, critical, inquiring, and conscience-pricking PVA answers, Matilda Asante's, and the Manasseh Azori Awene's to make meaningful progress. And that's my take. We'll be right back to get into the 3 major issues we are discussing this morning. How is the Galamsey fight faring? Why are students being prevented from fasting, Muslim students, in a public school? And big fix the country. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's the most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. The show is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of the Bank of Africa. Strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Waylead Properties, home is when one starts from. Heaven mosquito spray and coil, pleasant on humans, tough nightmare on insects. And Napa Foods, it is tasty. DBS Industries, we truly are your roof experts. Robert & Sons Limited Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care services provider. And my guest this morning for the show, Oliver Baka-Vomawo, researcher, University of Cambridge, Faculty of Law. He's a convener of the Fix the Country campaign. Kofi Bentel, he's lawyer and Senior Vice President, Imani Africa. Felix Kwachi, Ofosu is former Deputy Communications Minister, NDC parliamentary candidate for Bura Asebu Kwamankesi in the just ended elections. Dr. Gideon Boako is spokesperson and aide to the Vice President, Dr. Baumia. Thank you, gentlemen, for making the time to join us on Newsfile.
Welcome.
Great. So let me test and see if my guest on Zoom, we have a clear sound to you. So Kofi and Oliver, good morning.
Good morning, Samson. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great.
You have a new look.
It's serious business.
Yes, your hair is gone. All right. Okay, so Kofi should join us shortly, I understand. And all right. The rebel leader, Kofi Bento, can we hear you?
Hello, Samson. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for making the time once again. And thanks to all of you who have already started sending in messages on my take. Unfortunately, we don't discuss my take, so what you're asking, you can't have it. I am really privileged to hear the things you say about the take. In fact, there's a TV station that asked me to come to their TV station and host just my take for 1 hour. Unfortunately, I can't be anywhere but here, where independence and fearless journalism is practiced. Now, I want to take you back to a point to discover that fix the country is not new. Watch this.
God, give them wisdom. The utility companies. What the fuck is going on? I want to go home.
Well, today we are at the Efia Sutherland Park, where a civil society group calling itself Concerned Ghanaians for Responsible Governance is embarking on a peaceful demonstration, and their aim is to demand accountable governance from the President John Dramani Mahama.
Social media bio. Facebook bio. Twitter bio. Google Plus bio. The best watch your man penny.
The group is made up of intellectuals, and they are raising concerns about failed leadership, untold economic hardship, and corruption as some of the challenges facing this country. These protesters converged here as early as 6 a.m. today, Republic Day, 1st July 2014, and they are calling on the President John Dramani Mahama to sit up and address the problems of this country.
There are basic things in life: water, health, energy, education, transportation. And the bad leadership has affected every part of it.
My business has dipped. The currency has depreciated. You can't even get it to buy. You can't pay our staff. You're thinking of laying off your staff. Now it's actually tough.
The total denigration of the office of the president, the total lack of respect that in bulk, in mass, individually, Ghanaians now experience when you talk about issues pertaining to governance, government, the president.
This thing that, you should show respect. The other man is stealing, he's killing you. Why do you have to show respect to him? In Brazil, what happened? If the young man called Sule Muntari was not brave enough to slap somebody, do you think we would have known what was going on? No.
For me, it was very reminiscent of the 70s during a champion's time, which were really bad times, where we all slept at the petrol station. So that's indication that, you really need to get up and talk about it, because we cannot, as a nation that deserves so much more, come to this level.
I'm working like a bull and I'm paying my taxes. The government got to work like a bull as well and make sure that my road is fixed, that I have electricity, that I have water. That is their job. It is not for me to tell the president how to fix the economy. If he didn't know how to fix the economy, why did he run for office?
And as you can see, they are holding placards with various inscriptions and are lamenting over poor governance, general economic hardship, and widespread corruption in the Mahama-led government. And now, after some few speeches, the group is now moving onto the streets. But there seems to be some resistance from the police.
We want to go! We want to go! We want to
Finally, the group have managed to get out onto the streets, peacefully chanting patriotic songs.
There's a reason they are laborers and they are managers. It's about time we kick the laborers out and make the managers do the thinking. Ghana needs thinking people.
But again, having moved a few distance towards the National Theatre, the police are resisting the group from moving beyond this point.
We have the capacity to stop what you are doing, so don't break down. We agreed on the arrangement, everything beforehand.
There is no need for force. We will not give the police reason or any cause to use force on us.
The police have called for reinforcement and they are here in their numbers with crowd control and heavy ammo, demanding the protesters to disperse home. These highly spirited protesters won't budge, and as you can see, some have decided to sit right in the middle of the road, defiling the orders of the police. The leadership of the protesters have said that they would have to move beyond this point, but the police aren't going to give them that opportunity. Now let's speak to one of the leaders and ask him why up to now they haven't been able to move.
Because the Ghana police is breaking the law and denying us our right of simple movement. We are moving in one single file, no violence, quietly, going our various ways, and they have blocked the road, as you can see, preventing us from moving. If this was a violent crowd, they would attack the police. The police is supposed to be here to protect us and to make sure that this demonstration comes off peacefully. They have constituted themselves into the problem and not the solution.
Right now, they are trying to block the roads, but of course, we are then going to go a merry-go-rounds with them because we can't accept the situation that we are going through now.
At this moment, the protesters have turned back. They are really going a different direction. I think the police didn't allow them to take the route which they really wanted to move. And so now we are going to follow them to see how they disperse from these grounds. The protesters are moving towards at this moment. Can I speak to Mr. Forata? Where really are we going now?
I think they've kind of blocked us from everything we want to do. So we'll see how we'll find a way to get to our destination.
Okay, when you say your destination, where really you really mean? Is this to the Flagstaff House?
That should be the destination.
If the police will give us the direction, we'll move. But they are blocking us, so we are finding our own.
What really is happening at the moment?
The police are preventing us from exercising our constitutional right to protest. And we are improvising, that is all.
So what will be the way forward?
I can't tell you the details of it right now.
And now, having dispersed from the Efia Sutherland Park, some of the protesters have managed to find their way around TV3, which is close to the Flagstaff House, to present their petition. But here again, the police won't allow them to go or to move any further from this point. As I speak to you now, the group have divided themselves into two, one in front of TV3 protesting, and they want to have their way into the Flagstaff House. And as you can see behind me, another group is also protesting here, and you can see the police in their numbers also not trying to allow them to move any inch beyond this point. I think it's now becoming physical because the police have allowed them to have a peaceful demonstration. But as I said earlier, the arrangement was that they should not come closer to this point. There's so much traffic because the road is virtually blocked. The protesters have virtually taken over the road, and the police are really not going to allow. I think they have arrested somebody who was resisting the police from doing their duty. Why is it getting physical at this point?
Nothing seems to work. Our salaries are the same, while everything seems to go downhill. Now the people have come out to protest to the government and asking government to do something, stabilize the currency, stabilize the economy. And what are we meeting? We are meeting the police who are insisting that, oh, okay, you know what, they wouldn't let us go and present our views.
We started on a good note. We're all enjoying it, but unfortunately, where it has gotten to, we have no choice than dispersing them. That is exactly. What agreement did they reach? They are supposed to converge at the Efua Sutherland Children's Park. And then 3 of the executives or chosen people will present a petition under escort to the Flagstaff House. Unfortunately, they did not go by that arrangement.
Convener of the demonstration, Nana Akosewia, is now about to read the petition to the crowd.
Your Excellency, our concerns in no particular order of importance are as follows. 1. The erratic supply of electricity nationwide. Dumso. The unreliable supply of potable water across the country, here in Accra itself. The ever-depreciating value of the city, constant increases in taxes, inefficient revenue collection, very poor road networks, constant increments in utility tariffs, frequent increase in the prices of petroleum products, government's inability to make statutory payments timeously to schools, health facilities and other state institutions, government's inability to address labor-related issues on a timely basis, government's inability to exhibit decisive leadership in the fight against corruption, government's inability to kick out incompetent and non-performing appointees, the over-politicization of socio-economic issues along partisan lines. We have no doubt that this petition will receive the urgent attention it deserves, because we trust that your government is a listening government.
Some selected media houses are being escorted to the Flagstaff House, where the leaders will be presenting their petition to the president.
We are calling for only one person per media house.
What about TV? If you want TV, one can take and you share.
Then let's go with the one per media house.
The leaders now have presented the petition to the Deputy Chief of Staff, Madame Valerie Sawyer, and the leader, Nana Akosewia, is now about to address the crowd.
Responsible governance. Responsible governance. We have given the president our indication that we want swift action. And so, if within a reasonable time we do not see change, we do not see results, we would gather again and embark on this constitutionally guaranteed right to protest. We shall do so till we see change.
Right, and thanks to Infobox TV, July 2014, I just decided to take you just a little way back. Now, note something. Occupy Flagstaff House started on social media, onto the streets. That very early morning, I was at the Efua Sutherland Children's Park. You have seen the, as it were, the characters in this clip, and you know just too many of them. You saw George Anda, who was in the government and was MP, later joined the government, and after he became an MP, unfortunately lost his seats. You saw the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, very vocal about the issues that Occupy Flagstaff Out has tabled. You saw GIPC boss Yofi Grant. You saw Kofi Kapito. You saw Kofi Bento, and I'm going to him right away. I'm going to get my guests to give me just 2 minutes of their commentary on what they have seen comparing to today. You saw Ace Ananankoma, Kwekua Jimambio, Nana Ewua, who was the leader, and so on and so forth. Kofi, looking back, you defied the reins. The issues that Fix the Country is asking to be addressed appear to be the same. On that day, I told you I was very unhappy about how they treated Kobiado. You know, they arrested, asked him to get into the police van, and you jumped onto that van. You said they would go with all of you. You will not allow one of you to be picked. And we have spoken, I've told you how I felt, what might happen to you guys on that day. Reflections in some 2 minutes.
Right. So, good morning again. You know, I have no regrets. And I do think, if we don't remember anything at all, what we all should take away is this. Any country where people who feel this strongly can exercise their constitutional right to vent the way we did, and any country which has people that passionate, and any country which has people who do not need to. And I want to make that point clear. Until that day, I can tell you what people used to tell us, that it's only people who are paid who go on demonstrations, you know, stuff like that. People parked Range Rovers, joined us in the rain, defying the police. Any country that has people that passionate who will put themselves on the line to say what they have to say in a peaceful manner is a good country and will not descend into chaos. Why? Because it is useful for you to have a system which allows that for many reasons. So I absolutely am happy about what we did that day. And I tell you, that day, we are still feeling the repercussions, the reverberations from that day, out of that one small demonstration, which was mocked. Like the Fix the Country is, you know, somebody's trying to mock them. It was mocked, you know, but it had such a huge impact. And many people still blame us for, you know, the regime change and all those other things. But if you ask me what do I feel, I am absolutely happy with what we did. If we have to do it again, we will do it again. Our country must develop a democracy that allows
I ask about
and a system which makes it possible.
I asked about the issues. The issues appear to remain the same. They spoke about taxes. As we speak, they said taxes overburdening the Ghanaian in difficult times. What difficult times can we talk about than COVID? And yet, in the budget, we are aware of the taxes that have been imposed. They spoke about increase in fuel prices. You and I are waking up this morning to how the fuel prices, you know, have been increased. And of course, people suspect that because of Fix the Country, something small has been done to tweak some aspect of it down. There was Dumso erratic power supply. We are not in different circumstances. So the issues are the same.
Well, honestly speaking, they are not. They seem to be the same. I was there, and I know what drove me to the streets. Part of what drove me to the street was, you know, it looked as if we did not have a solution. At the time, there was no light at the end of the Dumso tunnel. And after that, we stayed in Dumso for over a year. We had to do Dumso must stop, which was even bigger than this, before we saw serious attempts at dealing with Dumso. So essentially, if you talk about corruption, it's still there. Talk about the fuel increases, it's still there. And I have to say, look, nobody will say that the present government has lived up to expectation. Okay, I don't have any problem making that clear. Okay, you are measured according to the expectations that you create. And this government created very big expectations and they haven't met it. But I will also say that the issues are not the same. Dumso is threatening to come back. The Dumso we have now, what people are calling it Doomvid because of COVID to differentiate it from the other one. And I think the importance is there. This is not what we were facing. This is not what drove us onto the streets. I can debate anybody on that. All right. So the issues are similar, but they are not the same. That being said, I will not deny anybody their right to also voice their displeasure with what is going on. Like I said, the government came in on the promise that they were different, will do better, and they set very high expectations. I think it's reasonable for them to be held to the expectations that they set. But no real analyst will tell you that the problems that we have now are the same as the problems that we had then.
Apart from the Dumso, that's, was for quite a long time, a prolonged period, what other issues being raised now would say did not prevail at the time?
So generally,
the increase in taxes, fuel prices, if you took those, for example, questions of the economy, and we have heard significant, individuals speak about the unsustainability of the debt today.
So I agree with you. Something like I've said, the issues are the same. The headings are all the same. Okay. And I'm saying that I think there is justification if people want to voice, their displeasure with what is going on. But let me tell you something. There are very important differences now from then. So we were mocked, all right, by a minister then. Today, the fixed Ghana people were being mocked by a parliamentarian. And you see what happened? He was quickly slapped down and came back and apologized, all right? You had a situation where today you've had the vice president of the land put out in clear terms, this is what the problem is, this is what we've done. You can see a more respectful engagement with the people. And I'm not saying that solves the problems, but I prefer this to that. And I can go on. So if you take the economy, for instance, look, we are disappointed that we have this massive debt on our head, etc. But we didn't have COVID back then, all right? And yes, COVID is an excuse for everything in this country today. And I don't think that the COVID funds have been properly managed. And I think that if we investigate the COVID funds, we'll find too much corruption, all right? Back then, we didn't have COVID, but we had this economic meltdown. Let me tell you something about the economy today. Given the problems that we had, okay, you would have expected a worse erosion in our economic circumstances. And we don't have time to go into that. But the cedi, for instance, has depreciated. But I can tell you, any analyst will tell you that if you consider a number of things, there's been some relative stability of the cedi now than you had then. So in short, what
those who disagree with that argument will say, why we take basic things to make the argument, and they are pointing you to the price of a bag of cement. How much was it then? How much is it today? Today, 40 something. Some places, we are told, have even gone up to 50 Ghana cedis per bag.
I agree with you, and I will repeat myself because I know how people would take this, that the circumstances are not good. We expected better. But I was here then, I am here now. I think I'm able to analyze a bit better than maybe the average person. So what I'm saying is this, things are bad. They should have been better. We expected better management from the persons who told us they were more competent. We think that they have not done what they told us they were going to do. And clearly they are not showing the kind of promise that they gave us.
Okay.
That being said, what I'm saying is that the circumstances today, if you take Dumso, for instance, I've given you the example. If you even take the reaction of the political class, I've given you the example. All right. My biggest disappointment is with the police trying to get a restraining order, but I think we'll get to that.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that I think the people trying or about to demonstrate have every right to do so, and they must do so. Nobody must stop them. But I can say emphatically, and I can defend my position, that the circumstances now, bad as they are not as bad as they were. And the despondency at the time was not the same level of despondency we have now. I hope the government will sit up and deal with the issues. And let me say one other thing. The worst part of what is going on now, which I think is fueling the anger, is that despite the mess going on with the rest of us, again, the same political class has elected to excuse themselves from our common circumstances. You still see the V8s, 5.7 liter V8s riding around town. And I've made the point, anytime you see one V8, that's $150,000. When you see 10, that's about $1.5 million. When people see that kind of stuff, it energizes their anger. So that, I might say, is one of the things fueling all that is going on. If you came to solve our problems, do not solve your problem and then leave us to fight this thing out. So yes, things are different, but there are a few things too which absolutely make the present call totally justified.
All right, so I said I intended to have you guys give me a take for 2 minutes for this aspect before we go into the legal aspects of it. But let's stay a bit more here. I'm going to play you some of the sounds from, you said the government had created expectation that it had not met. And you are of the view that even though the circumstances are not what we expect, they are better than at the time. I want you to listen and confirm whether this is what you are saying when you say our expectations have not been met, and then also ask the question whether indeed it is not worse than it was at the time. Let's listen to this.
All of these are hurting. They are hurting the economy. These taxes are hurting. And therefore, you are not going to get the growth. And when you don't get the growth, you will not get the revenue. And when you don't get the revenue, you go back to increasing taxes to get the revenue. And then you are in a cyclical downward spiral. And so they have it wrong. And we will change that particular policy. We will use the tax incentives to grow this economy. If you are a nation of laws, you've got to enforce the laws. I mean, the procurement process, as we all know, this Smarties contract went for procurement approval after it had already been awarded. The whole process of the award of that contract really stinks. So I think that it's very sad, that approach. And I think this is really why Nana Akufo-Addo made the point that fight against corruption in this sense is really a sham. It's really a sham. I want to leave that to breathe, but we are going to build a new economy, a different economy, and you will be hearing a little bit more, because you cannot just criticize without providing alternatives, and we are going to, and we have anyway.
You can tell us something as to what exactly.
I'm telling you, it's an exciting. I will tell you what it is not. It is not a doomsday economy. It is not a dead goat economy. It is not a friends and family economy.
In the first 2 years of an MPP and administration under this infrastructure for poverty eradication program, where every constituency will get $1 million every year for rural and deprived communities. Under this program, there should be no village or community in Ghana after the first 2 years that would have a water problem or a toilet problem.
Kofi, my question, your answer.
Yes, I agree that, again, this government set itself, or set the rest of us, expectations that they have not met. And honestly, even at the time, I felt some of the expectations were preposterous. I remember criticizing the government when they said we're going to build a hospital for each district. And I was roundly condemned by the NPP people. And I said, look, it doesn't make any sense. And a number of things that they have done, we've had to complain about so many different things. And you know what is going on right now when we complain about different things. So yes, I agree. This government, I repeat, has not met the expectations it sets. But that said, we have to compare this epoch and that epoch. And I say that this is not as bad as it used to be. And you can take the issues one by one, we go through them, you will see what I'm talking about. So again, I mean, if we have time to go through the details, we'll go through.
No, but Kofi, the example I use, a very common one. The price of a bag of cement. The price of a bag of cement at the time was less than 20 Ghana cedis. As we speak, and people are sending me messages now that they are buying it for 54 Ghana cedis. Is that worse or better?
You know, when you want to do this kind of analysis, for instance, you have to use the dollar equivalent, etc. And do you know that real estate, for instance, as we speak, has taken over as one of the main drivers of this economy? People don't realize it, but we are experiencing a construction boom right now. At the time last year, we had fewer cement providers or sellers or not producers, but people are importing different brands on the market than we have now. But still, we are experiencing a cement shortage, okay, as we speak. In other words, more cement is being produced now than was being produced when we demonstrated, but still we are having a cement shortage. The real estate the real estate subsector is experiencing levels of growth now than we had then. When you add those things and you do the analysis, you understand why prices are the way they are. Can you
conceive of, or are you aware of a single product that's whose price has remained where it was at the time, to be able to say we are better and not worse off?
Samson, if you told me that, I would have found some for you. But again, I am not here to apologize or be, a defender of the government. So I repeat, the government is not doing as much as it gave us an expectation that it will do. Right. However, prices rise every year in this country. It is not a good excuse. I don't like the fuel price problem. All right. I remain on the point that I made, that if you look at the issues one by one, things are bad. They are not as bad as they used to be. If we want to deal with details, if you talk about cement, I'll give you the facts about cement, okay? The production of cement today in this country is many times the multiples of what it was then. Okay. Still, we have a shortage because real estate has gone up. So we can deal with the details if we want to, but the general view, and please, people can feel free to disagree, but if we are going to disagree on facts, then we can go into the facts and look at them. So things are not good. And it's largely because we're given expectations that have not been met, and unnecessary errors are being made. Some of the taxes that you're talking about, they are nuisance taxes, the same kind of nuisance taxes that this government did away with. And I think that the worst part of all that is going on is the profligacy in government. They are not showing us by example that they are prepared to sacrifice. We still see them spend like, there are CEOs in this country taking 6-figure salaries, and I don't have a problem with them. But if there are people who could not buy a Toyota Corolla, okay, a brand new Toyota Corolla, who are in government now demanding 2-3 V8s. Those are the things that are annoying. So I think the government must look at that and set up. But Samson, if you're going to go through the economic metrics one by one, many people will be able to prove to you that things are bad, but they are not as bad as they used to be.
This campaign, Fix the Country campaign, is justified, yes or no?
It is justified, absolutely.
Thank you. Hold on there. Felix, your reflections.
Well, I remember that period quite well because I was in government. So that is why I am a bit astounded by Kofi's submissions. It is obvious from the footage that you showed that unlike this Fix the Country campaign, that campaign had significant political infusion because we had significant MPP figures who later on came into government and have superintended the disaster that we face today as a country on the beat at the time. In this Fix the Country campaign, in fact, they have been at pains to ward off political involvement. And those who have even dared approach them have had X on their faces. It is purely organic, and it is led by the youth on social media in ways that we did not see in 2014. Now, I also violently disagree with some of the claims that Kofi has made. The claim that at the time that they were going on that demonstration, there was no end in sight cannot be true on the basis of facts. And I will demonstrate this presently. Look, 2 days after this demonstration, I, on behalf of government, held a press conference at which I catalogued sector by sector what we were doing in response to the demands that they were making. And I can tell you that on many of those metrics, the government that I worked for did far, far better than what Nana Akufo-Addo has done in the last 5 years. So the claim that there was no end in sight cannot be true. By 2014, there were significant measures in place to address doomsday. By the time, 2 years after that, we had increased our generation capacity, which was the problem, to 5,000 megawatts, such that today we have excess of 1,000 megawatts that we can rely on at any time. That kind of work could not have begun before 2014. In terms of water, at the time they were going on that demonstration, we were fixing the water problem such that over 100 million barrels of water a day, gallons of water a day, was added to our water stock 2 years or within a year after this demonstration. And that work could not have started after that demonstration. So it is simply not true that there was no end in sight. Whilst we acknowledged at the time that there were difficulties, we were also working. Indeed, even before they went on that demonstration, I, on behalf of the Ministry of Information, had begun to publicize what we were doing. Strangely enough, some of his colleagues used to ridicule us. They joined MPP propagandists to tell us that the pictures we were posting were photoshopped and that they were not real and that we were doing drone propaganda. Some of them joined the MPP to mock us that way. So I'm quite frankly surprised that Kofi is saying that at the time that they were demonstrating, there was no end in sight. Again, the claim that there has been a more respectful response to this fix the country drive than was the case in 2014. It's also not true. Look, I can reveal to you that when they announced their intention to go on demonstration, as has been their practice over the years, the police was uneasy. They were not sure what to do. They approached government, and I can tell you at the highest level, because I was in that meeting, they were told clearly that government did not have a problem with that demonstration, so it will go on. As I speak to you, those engaged in the Fix the Country demonstration cannot go on demonstration because the police is relying on the president to issue an executive instrument allowing for public gatherings. At a time when only last week, a church was able to organize about 10 to 20,000 people on the blind side of the security agencies. You have lamented the bizarre use of a law to thwart the efforts of these individuals to go on demonstration. So they cannot even demonstrate, give expression to the frustration that they are expressing on social media. How do you say that this situation is better than the era where government was willing and able to allow this demonstration to go on? Indeed, when they did the demonstration, despite all the abuse that they heaped on government, a high-ranking government official, Dr. Valerie Soya, Deputy Chief of Staff at the time, received the petition and indicated that government was going to take steps to address the concerns that they had expressed. So the second claim that the response then was more respectful than now is not true. Indeed, this government clearly has sponsored counter hashtags. They have heaped attacks and abuses on some of the people leading this Fix the Country drive. Indeed, I have become an unwitting victim. Only yesterday I discovered that agents of this government had fabricated a flyer saying that I had confirmed that President Mahama was willing to finance the demonstration that this people were. And this is being done by this government. It is an attack on the integrity of the organizers of this demonstration. Nobody suggested that, even though there were clearly known MPP members in the fold of Occupy Ghana at the time that they were doing this demonstration. The other claim that Kofi makes, that even though he is disappointed somehow with the performance of this government, things are better now than before, cannot be true. Look, there's not a single significant metric that can support Kofi's claim. The economy today is in more shambles than it was in 2014. Why? The two things that have led us here, that has resulted in the increases in the price of goods and services, are the huge, extraordinarily huge deficit, which the IMF pegs at 16%, unprecedented in the Fourth Republic, and the huge debt overhang, which has taken our debt to GDP ratio to 76.1%. By the time we left power, our debt to GDP ratio was 56%. We didn't have a 16% deficit. Our deficit was 6.3%. Indeed, this government will spend 35 billion Ghana cedis, half of the 72 billion Ghana cedi revenue they expect, to service our debt. And I'm not talking about principal payment, interest payments alone. It is that which has created a huge hole in government's finances, forcing them to impose the taxes that have led to increases in the price of fuel and everything else. So on what basis can Kofi say that fuel which sold at between 14 to 15 or 16 cedis in 2016 is worse than fuel which sells above 25 cedis now? Cement, at the time that they went on that demonstration, it sold for half of the price that it is selling now. Milk, which item has not gone up? Again, let us talk about doing so. You know, there's a saying that the ailment that left the vulture bald would have killed the hawk if it afflicted it. When we came to power, or when President Mahama became president, and President Mahama was president for 4 years, just like President Akufo-Addo has crossed, he met a huge shortfall in generation, which was not his doing. He took responsibility and invested in generation capacity such that we have far more generation capacity today than we need. And therefore, generation capacity cannot become a reason why we go into doom so. 5 years after taking office, with all the work that had been done before them, the heavy lifting that had been done before them, and the fact that they had been left a fund, ESLA, which they opposed anyway when they were in opposition, which to date has generated in excess of 12 billion Ghana cedis to address the financial difficulties within the sector. They have been unable to invest adequately in transmission. Indeed, many of the projects that are going on now that they say they are working on are projects that will bequeath them. They have not been able to invest in transmission, and they say weaknesses in our transmission system account for the load shedding that we have been experiencing. Indeed, compare President Mahama's posture when he went to Parliament in 2015 and promised that, first of all, took responsibility for doing so, even though we all know that it was not his doing, and promised to fix it, and indeed fixed it within a year, to the posture of this government that is even denying the existence of doing so. Despite the fact that from Monday, my birthday, they have advertised a load shedding exercise which will affect a tall list of communities in Ghana. So between a government that takes responsibility for a problem, promises to fix it and fixes it, and one that even denies the existence of the problem that we all face, which one can be said to have done better? So I am not sure how Kofi can sustain his narrative that things are better now than they were. Things are not better now than they were. Again, COVID has been used as a whipping boy. Look, the 16% deficit was avoidable if this government was minded to honor its own promise on page 13 of its 2016 manifesto that they will ensure fiscal discipline. When they went to do the mid-year review, because of COVID, there were revenue shortfalls. So they revised their revenue targets from, I think, 42 billion Ghana cedis to 40 billion Ghana cedis. That is tax revenue. They were required also to adjust the expenditure leg of things, because fiscal prudence means that if you suffer shortfalls in your income, you adjust your lifestyle so that you don't spend excessively more than you earn, especially when you have it in mind that you have a debt overhang which is going to put pressure on you. Because elections were approaching, they threw caution to the wind and engaged in reckless expenditure. Look, I campaigned in this election. I contested elections. So I'm aware that under the guise of providing stimulus for struggling business, they sent monies to their supporters to oil their campaign machinery. And we all know what transpired in this country. Expenditure that they should have avoided so that we don't fall into the deficit that we have. So if we have a deficit of 16%, which means that now when they raise money or they borrow money, they have to use it to finance that deficit. It is because of reckless expenditure. They could have avoided that if they had kept within their means, which is a principle that all economists appreciate. Again, when they came to power, and after having criticized us, demonized borrowing, lambasted and lampooned President Mahama, called him names. Indeed, Occupy Ghana, when they went on that demonstration, one of their grievances was borrowing. This government comes to power and adds almost 180 billion Ghana cedis to our public debt stock, moving our debt to GDP ratio from 56% to 76.1%, and ensuring that half of our tax revenue is used to pay interest. On what basis can any objective analyst see that this situation is better than what they inherited? And borrowing is a conscious decision. They go about claiming that, they were compelled to borrow in order to resolve the financial sector crisis. Something. You see, you can't have your cake and eat it. Only yesterday or so, Dr. Bamia released a list of 70 things that he claims this government has achieved. One of the claims he makes is that they have saved the financial sector by underwriting the deposits of customers of the banks that were collapsed. So he is taking credit. Indeed, in all of the electioneering campaign, they highlighted this as a key achievement for which reason they should be voted for. Yet, when we come to analyze the consequence of that action, they say they should be absolved of responsibility because their hands were forced. So you take credit, you call for plaudits in actions that you've taken to supposedly clean up the banking sector. And yet when it leads to an increase in our debt and a budget deficit, you say that you should be absolved of responsibility and that you've done better. You have not done better. And something. All the other issues, water. Dr. Bawumia promised in the clip that you played that there will be no village that will not have water within 2 years of an MPP administration. As I speak to you, it is not only villages that are suffering water shortage. Major cities are suffering water shortage because they have not invested significantly in water.
What we are hearing in Tema, is it true?
Well,
that they got into the gutters and they were depending on water from there.
But the pictures look authentic. So far, there has been no denial. So I'm inclined to believe what I have seen. It is not an unusual spectacle. There is water shortage and everybody experiences. There are major towns in this country that have had to live with water shortage for months. You recall that we resolved some of the most protracted water problems in this country. A typical example is Adenta, that had lived for close to 15 years without water. We resolved it. But this government has not been able to do so. Talk of roads. Go and check their 2019 budget. They listed about 100 roads that they said they would do. Less than 10% of those roads were done. Meanwhile, this government has had more money than previous governments. It was Dr. Bawumia who, in the run-up to the 2016 elections, used to say that in the 8 years that we were in power, we had access to 248 billion Ghana cedis. He lumped everything together. Increase in our debt, cocoa proceeds, gold proceeds, oil proceeds, and what have you. Since they've been in power, 5 years down the line, they've had over 300 billion Ghana cedis. We had 248 in 8 years. In 5 years, they've had 300 billion Ghana cedis. So they should do far more in terms of investing in infrastructure, investing in the productive sector to ensure that people's basic needs and wants are met. They have been unable to do that. So I think that Kofi should apportion blame where it is necessary.
Okay.
He must hold this government accountable. In any event, something, if you come and tell me that you are going to offer superior governance and you come to power and all we see is appalling incompetence, there can be no absolution for you.
Okay, let's hear from Gideon, but I need to say that having followed Kofi Bento in the last, in the period of this government, I doubt anybody can say that there is anybody who holds the government accountable better than Kofi has done over the period. I've
disagreed with specific points. Right. But he's one of those who have maintained some level of consistency. That one you can't take away from.
Right. Yes. So Gideon, yes. Yeah. Why do we have this, surge from government spokespersons, ministers, or is it MPs who feel this must not even be contemplated?
Well, Samson, I honestly don't think there have not been one or two communication excesses on the part of some elements in government. But I equally also want to hold the position that it is not government stance to kind of scorn or denigrate any attempt by any law-abiding Ghanaian to vent his or her spleen or demonstrate against what he or she feels are the shortfalls of government. We have been here before as a nation, and this is not peculiar to the government of President Akufo-Addo. We are Ghanaians, and we elect leaders to serve in our best interest based on the expectations that we have and what the possible outcomes are. We assess and judge governments anytime, and we do so in varied ways, some through social media campaigns, demonstrations, discussions here and there. And we in government respect that kind of position, and that is why you see key official government communicators responding to this particular Face the Country campaign in a manner that you are saying. And like Kofi said, His Excellency the Vice President, who is the number 2 gentleman, put out some kind of response in a way that he felt, yes, government has a duty to deliver on its promise. She also equally has the right to put out records that he or she has been able to make. And so the Vice President put out the records. I don't want to christen the Fix It campaign as an agenda being pushed by political operators. Whatever it is and in which form that it is, Felix thinks it is organic relative to what happened in 2014. That is his opinion. At the end of the day, when it comes out and we see the elements involved, we'll be able to judge whether or not there are some political elements there. But you cannot also discount the fact that those within the political arena, some way, somehow, depending on where they stand, may decide to support or stand against that. And so that is also fair. We are looking at issues of hardships, unmet expectations, and what people expect governments to do for them. As a government, we came on the back of a social contract between us and the electorates, and we are obliged to deliver on that social contract. Having said that, I should admit that we cannot say that in the last 4 years, the first-term mandate that was given to President Akufo-Addo, every single mandate upon which we came to power was delivered. But it's also important to stress that we've made some significant successes as a government, and we still have more to do. I have said yesterday that when we were in school, no matter what grade or mark you score in science or English, 95, 85, 50, your terminal report will still come with the comment, there's more room for improvement. That is not suggestive that your teacher is indicating to you you are dull or you do not have conscience or your IQ level is 0. But all that is trying to say, or he is trying to say, is that yes, you've done well, but you can do better. And if somebody tells you you've done well and you can do better, it's not an insult. So we don't see it that way. We appreciate the concerns that people have raised, and for us as a government, it kind of gives us a reminder and keeps us on our toes that, hey, we are doing this, but we still have more to do. There has been discussions on this table as to whether or not the issues raised in 2014 are qualitatively different from the issues that we are talking of today. Kofi had said that there seem to be some kind of commonalities, but also some differences in some way. And I think I share in that view. And Felix obviously will disagree. You were making an example of prices of cement to say that if cement was sold in 2014 at S amount, and today it is sold at S plus Y amount, why then do we say the situations are the same? If you really want to do that analysis, then you need to understand within the context in which we have to make such analysis. Prices of goods and services in an inflationary prone economy will go up. And so if they will go up, you don't just look at the end values to make comparisons. You have to look at their relative changes. And so it is a relative rate of change that will help you to do assessment to see whether or not a particular government is doing better than the other. That is how we should situate the argument. For instance, if you want to look at petrol prices, it is very uncommon within our setup to have petrol prices moving down from one year to the other. Usually you have them going up. And so if that is the case, characteristically, and you would want to assess the performance of two governments on petrol prices, then you have to look at their relative changes in the prices and not just when they end. And so if you look at petrol prices, for instance, From 2009 to 2012, the first 4 years of the NDC under President Mills, the average increase was 29.5%. 2013 to 2016, the average increase was 24%. And in 2017 to 2020, the average increase is 8.25%. So clearly, petrol prices over years have gone up, but they went up at a decreasing rate during the period of President Akufo-Addo relative to the 2 periods under the NDC. You can do the same thing for how the cedi has been faring relative to the dollar and the other major trading currencies. You look at their relative changes in the values, and you will know that 1993 to 1996, the cedi depreciated on average by 27.95%, 97 to 2000, 25.19%, 2001 to 2004, 11.04%, 2005 to 2008, 6.7%, 2009 to 2012, 10.1%, 2013 to 2016, 18%. But in 2017 to 20, 8.14%. So yes, our cedi has been depreciating across regimes, but it has depreciated at a decreasing rate under President Akufo-Addo relative to the period I mentioned. So that is with how we do price change analysis. And you can even look at electricity tariffs. We're talking about 2014, that demonstration took place. 2014, electricity prices increased by 28.36%. In fact, in 2010, the NDC government under President Mahama Mills increased electricity prices by 89%, 2011 10%, 2013 78%, 2014 28%, 2015 59%. But look at 2017 to 2020. 2017, there was no increase in electricity prices under President Akufo-Addo. 2018, electricity prices went down by 22% under President Akufo-Addo. 2019, electricity prices went up 11% under President Akufo-Addo. And in 2020, electricity prices went down by 50%. So if you look at it this way, you will see significant efforts have been made by President Akufo-Addo to reduce the hardships on the people. We are not saying that people are not experiencing hardships. It has been with us. But what have we done to mitigate the hardships on the people? I tried to do some simple analysis, and I don't know if your producers can show the graph on our screens.
Yeah, they can.
To do some analysis to see the totality of the impacts of government interventions on the people. And there is a renowned economist, Arthur Okun, who computed what we call the misery index, which is basically the sum of the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate and inflation. And if you look at the second graph, without trying to zero in on political regimes, you could see that gradually from 2020, our misery index, which is MI, which determines how on average everybody is doing economically, has been coming down. But if you look at it from 2012 going, it went up to 2016, and it has started coming down. Our misery level then assumed an uptick in 2020, of course, because of COVID and the devastation effects of COVID and all of that. But you could see clearly that from 2020, from over 50% in the misery index, how average everybody is doing economically, started coming down. But if you want to zero in on the two political regimes, MPP and NDC, from 2012 under President Mahama, started going up. People were getting more poorer. And then it started slumping down from 2016 coming down up to 2019. And then COVID came in. And the scourge of COVID is something that is not only Ghana that has been experiencing that. It has had a devastating toll on all economies. The major giants are all suffering. But even in the midst of COVID, let's look at the approach that President Akufo-Addo took. In the midst of the pandemic, where government revenues were decreasing, business activities were going down, were locking down, the sensitive government, as President Akufo-Addo's government has been, said that the little resources that we can have, let us use some to help the people, provided free water, provided electricity for the people, provided food, and also gave some money to support businesses. We did not see this during Dumsor time, where Dumsor was collapsing businesses, people were dying, businesses were slumping. We didn't see, even in the midst of Dumsor, where we're not getting electricity, we're increasing electricity prices. So there is always a relative way of looking at the angle. But that is not, all of that is not. At the time,
Akufo-Addo and the rest of them asked Mahama to fix it. And he fixed it.
He actually didn't fix it.
What people are saying now is that these are our realities. The fact that taxes are being increased is not imagination. The fact that fuel prices are going up, the fact that cost of living is going up are not imagination, they are real. So the charge is fix it.
Perfectly. I agree with you, and we accept the call. What we do not accept is politicians on the other side, or the left side, trying to jump on this to say that we were better off when we can easily, reckon exactly how you performed in government. We accept the genuineness of the call and the objectivity with which it comes with, and we think that we have a responsibility to face the problems. Some of the problems are problems that are quite specific to this government. Others are legacy problems, and we all know where we have come from as a nation. And so much as we agree, we need to also see how we distill and then see which ones are legacy.
They have put up a list. They are not legacy problems. They are promises that your government made and has simply not fulfilled them.
Exactly.
You cut salt for second phase of the KGTI market. So they've started listing them. They say you cut salt for it. That cannot be the end of the matter, and it cannot remain forever. You have done 4 years, you are in your 5th year. You cannot continue to be explaining to people the problems. You must be solving the problems. They have mentioned a number of road projects, including the Ofurukrom one that I'm very familiar with, Danloga Junction area and the rest of them, that they say you have abandoned.
Yes, we agree. There are a lot of some of these issues that people expect us to face by now, and we agree that government is in continuum. We are in the process of facing them. Today, as I speak with you, as part of the process of facing some of the challenges, we have about 1.7 million farmers who have signed up to the Planting for Food and Jobs. We have given about 290 million to national health service providers to provide health care to people. We're giving 97 million to National Boot Buffer Stock for free SHS. We have 80 million B5 plus steel plant at Lapeku, Ningo Pram, the biggest fabrication plant in West Africa and third in Africa, commissioned to create 2,000 direct and indirect jobs. We have a lot of projects coming on. Ghana takes the highest honors in 2020 WASI. It's part of the great things that have come to us. 350,000 doses of Oxford AstraZeneca taken to help us fight coronavirus.
I was supposed to have my second dose on the 1st of June. On the 1st of May, I'm here. I don't have it.
We've taken the vaccines now, so you're going to have it.
Why should you be excited about this?
We know that the supply chain issues suffer some disruption because of the case in India. And that is where most of these vaccines were produced. And so these delays are understandable. But the good thing is that we have the vaccines now. And so Ghanaians can have some respite. We are constructing...
The vaccines you have now will not even cater for, is it up to half of those who took their first dose?
So we have another 1.3 million COVID-19 vaccines also expected in Ghana in May by next week. That one is also coming. We have a construction of Goi bitumen plant that is about 82% complete and expected to be operational by close of 2021. We have the Accra branch of the Zonda Tech Ghana Limited, a 1D1F company which assembles light commercial vehicles, heavy machinery and equipment commissioned to provide more jobs. So a lot of things are happening. We are not saying that by doing all of these things, we've been able to wipe off all the problems of every Ghanaian in this country. We may not be able to do that, but we believe that we have had a good take-off. We need the continuous reminders that are coming from the Face It campaign and every other pundit and every Ghanaian. And we believe that collectively, we will be able to push the agenda and deliver. It is important that much as we try to criticize government and point out the foibles of government, we also see the kind of complementary role that we can give to government. And Ghanaians are doing that. We appreciate that. We are not in to say that people do not have the right or whatever they are doing, we're going to scorn them or we're going to kind of treat it with contempt. We accept all the complaints coming.
Do you accept the claim that without the heavy hand of government, there will not be this injunction against it? They would have gone on the demonstration, and people are beginning to use that to show how the NDC was more tolerant.
I am not in a position to talk about something I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, this is purely a police issue. The letter was written to the police, a meeting was held, other actors were brought on board. At the end of the day, the police communicated their decision to the prospective demonstrators. It doesn't seem to have gone well. I think there was a court decision also through an injunction, and we cannot be sitting here to assume that all those processes were influenced by politicians.
We will discuss that injunction in detail, and I make no qualms about that. You have heard me say already about it that that is a very bizarre thing. Now, let's bring in one of the guys behind taking the Fix the Country campaign from social media onto the grounds. Oliver, what exactly are you seeking? Listening to Gideon, it doesn't appear you are aware of the developments, of the good things that have happened in the country.
Something. First of all, thank you for your willingness to engage in this conversation, and to me in a peculiarly grounded way, as well as perhaps the persistent effort of Newsfile and the efforts it exerts to take the facts as objectively as it can and assess them in a way that engages our democratic values. What I appreciate about it is that it's just not perfunctory reporting, and for that I'm grateful. Now, I say this. Even as I say this, it brings to home for me in a concrete way some of the ways in which government responses to fix the country, the call for action, and how it has related to us as some of the people who by accident have become conveners of this. It betrays for me at the very least or undermines their claim that they are taking this issue seriously. And this is a conversation that I don't think that they believe is just and appropriate. Now, I would get to the question you asked because it took Gideon a graph to explain to Ghanaians that they are doing better than they themselves can feel. But the consistent actions by state institutions so far for me does not show that it takes its citizens as mature stakeholders in our democratic conversation. If you'd allow me, I'll take some time to give you specific examples of acts that have been done that for me as a citizen raises severe questions about procedure, propriety, and failure of state institutions to critically engage. Kofi Bento talks about respectful engagements with us, which was different from what they felt. I would not stand on that comparative point, but I am a bit perplexed and a little disappointed to hear his perspective that what is happening to us is respectful. I find it difficult to accept. So let's talk about those responses which he considers respectful. First of all, let's walk through the procedure through which the government has dealt with our attempts to exercise our democratic right to express our disaffection. Think carefully on the nature of how we were whisked into what was in essence a cabinet meeting. For me, that significantly displeases me. People have a right to their bodily autonomy and to decide where they want to go. We were told after we submitted the letter to the police and they responded that the Inspector General of Police, IGP, wanted to meet us. And in the way in the police convoy to that meeting, where abruptly the location was changed and we're taken somewhere else completely to meet a fully convened team of government ministers. Incidentally, one of the key persons who was missing from that meeting was the Minister for Health. And I think that is significant because COVID-19 has been used as a red herring. And I will perhaps come to that conversation when we discuss sort of the legal issues. Now, I will not address, because of what I've said, I will not address the patently unconstitutional way in which they went during that meeting, same meeting that they had called, to go and procure that injunction from the courts. But there's something about it that is interesting to me, because first, let me tell you about how we were served with that injunction. And again, people listening can determine for themselves whether this is respectful. So after the meeting, which were being, the government had indicated to us that they were willing to dialogue and that we should consider dropping the demand to go on the demonstration. And so that they wanted to form an interministerial committee. Our representative in the meeting told them that, well, we weren't expecting to have this meeting. We're practically ambushed into the conversation. And so give us a bit of time to engage with the entire audience about how they feel about this idea. And when we left that meeting, the regional commander who had driven us into the meeting, and mind you, the IGP himself was not even in that meeting, said that, can we have another meeting at 3 p.m. to discuss the protest? We said, sure. And so we were still preparing our response to the letter they had given us, because the law gives us 48 hours to respond to it. And then when it was getting closer to that 48-hour limit, we told the police, would it be possible if we can send that to you via email? They said to us, no, we would not receive it by email, but it has to be in person. So what we would do is we would send somebody by convoy, because we need to get that reply to the Inspector General of Police by 9 a.m. the next morning. Unknown to us, the real intention, the reason why they were refusing to receive it was because they wanted to serve us with an injunction they had already procured on our blind side, even though they know who they were dealing with. So does this look like constructive and respectful engagement? Does this sound proper and consistent with our democratic values? Felix talks about, and he says this, I guess, supposed to win himself points and for the previous government about how they have been more tolerant. But he talks about the police sitting in a meeting with government to decide whether or not to allow citizens to protest. And in his telling of the story, he sees this, I think, as evidence of some enlightened response, of some tolerance. But let's reflect on it carefully. Is it consistent with our constitutional promise that the government will go and take instructions from the government to decide whether or not citizens should be allowed to exercise their democratic rights? If the police have a grievance, the police should be able to tell us why, for whatever reasons, they, the police, would not be able to meet the requirements of the Public Order Act to provide security. And tell us that. And when we respond, they can go to court. The Attorney General can also make a representation in that proceedings and give a government perspective. That is how a democratic conversation is had. Does this reveal to you a sense of respectful engagement? Let me talk about the point which we have been hesitant to talk about for so long, because the point which we are considering taking legal action on, because it's very important. And for me, it breaks my spirit and even undermines my belief in the democracy we live in. When we went to that same meeting, the national security insisted that our representatives could not go into the meeting with their phones. And so they took the phones from them. Again, we weren't expecting that meeting. When we left out of that meeting, we have credibly established that one of our representatives, the only person who was using an Android phone, his phone was cloned. And that all the messages and the conversations we were having on our platform, he could no longer access it. And so what we did was we flashed his phone immediately. And it turned out to us that since then, even this we discovered just this morning, that calls from his phone were being diverted to another phone. We have that number, and we'll put that online. When we search for it online through Truecaller, it is called monitoring on Vodafone. That's how it is registered. Now, under the circumstances under which the government has mounted an unlawful surveillance against people who have given just notice to voice their protest on the streets, having participated in any illegal activity. In fact, the fact of giving notice to the police.
That's a suspicion. We must say so. That's a suspicion, correct?
We are going forward, and we're going to put this transparently in the public domain, and we're going to sue. And we are going to have the police and the telecom authorities involved give that information to the courts under the circumstances under which the government, we believe, has broken civil liberties of people by subjecting them subjecting us to unlawful surveillance. Now, this is a critical point, and it goes to the heart of our constitution. And I said this, again, not being an alarmist, but also very particularly mindful of the legal implications of what I'm saying. Kofi again has talked about mocking. Now, again, I raised this not to engage government, Kofi, in a back and forth, but to put things in perspective. Yes, I was part of the people online and on social media tweeting and talking about Occupy Flagstaff House. I was one of the supporters of it. When Hannah Tete tweeted mocking Occupy Ghana, I wrote a long post calling the tweet tone deaf. Now we have Honorable Anodompre, who's gone on and referred to us in uncharitable words as foolishness, the things we're talking about. We have Freddie Blay, who has issued a statement claiming that we're being financed by the NDC. You have the majority leader, calling himself now the leader of government business, who has organized a press conference again saying exactly the same things. You have the Ministry of Information, which has issued a statement on the basis of the meeting we have attended, claiming that we have agreed with government, when no agreement whatsoever was made, that we have agreed with government to continue to hold a dialogue through a whatever framework to solve grievances. We have given them no demands whatsoever, and nothing like that was said. And so, does this sound like constructive engagement? This morning, I received a phone call from someone. I'm saying this because we want to be a movement that is transparent and does things differently. I received a call this morning from somebody claiming that Professor Jampo had received a call from government saying that they wanted to meet us again. We have no confidence in the government's outreach and in wanting to have conversations when it does not really believe that they can engage people respectfully and in respect of their bodily autonomy. Let's talk perhaps then about the attacks on our integrity. Now, you see, I must say here that the tragedy, and I've said this point before, that the tragedy of politics in this country is that it has only enabled our worst enemies and has killed what is good in us. And we have been convinced that we are either NDC or MPP, and even if we are, that by this strange affiliation, we are somehow enemies. So in the face of a spontaneous movement that many people do not understand, are struggling to comprehend, they are using the same discredited frameworks for trying to divide us and to undermine our legitimate voices. Every 2 hours I go online and there's a fake news item claiming that we are NDC affiliates, that we are being financed by the former president, and often they can't even agree on the figures apparently that we are being financed by. Sometimes it's 4.3 million Ghana cedis, other days it's 4.8 million Ghana cedis. This morning I saw 48 billion Ghana cedis. It's perplexing. But these are the claims that are being made. There's another one claiming that we have embezzled funds within the group. You know, last week I was on this show talking to you about when we were discussing culture of silence. I think it was a week ago. It seems far away now. We were talking about culture of silence, and I was making the point to you that the government has disproportionate resources at this disposal. Yes.
Oliver, and I want you to take us through a list of the items for which, you know, this demonstration has become necessary. And I want to believe that you do that, and then we'll go for a quick break. We'll return to look at the injunction process itself. And I want you to try, if you can, discount the aspect of what you say is the interference by way of what we have seen as a budget that was splashed around that you have been very unhappy about, and a statement on the Fighters League or so letterhead that suggested that, you know, there was a problem within the conveners and so on. Because I think that people are smart enough to know when something is fake. Because when you see that budget thing and you see that letter thing, you can clearly see how fake, how not smart the people who put it out are. So I think you can ignore those ones, and let's move forward to the question of what in substance constitutes the list of the items that Fix the Country is seeking. We know there's this ordinary guy who started the hashtag. Is it some cool J or somebody? And then many other people began to. Today, as we speak, you are still in the trends, in the tweets. 6 in the trend. Of course, Newsfile every Saturday is number one, and we are number one as well. So tell us the list.
So first of all, yes, the Joshua Boydo, who everybody calls Kali J, first tweeted out, let's fix the country. And from there, spontaneously, we have over 600,000 people tweeting it on the average every day. On Twitter alone, about 200,000 on Facebook. But our demand is simple. And you won't believe it. It's already in the name. It's fix the country. It's not an amenities protest. It is not just an amenities protest. Of course, people are aggrieved about the socioeconomic circumstances. But we are not saying that we should measure whose doom so has a better timetable than the other person. For us and for the lot of people speaking, it's a fight, and I've said it so many times, it's a fight for the soul of this nation. And by God, we must win this fight. Let me make this clear. We are not asking for a change of leaders. What we are asking for is a change of leadership, about the system that produces the kind of leaders we have. It's about structures rather than individuals. It's about systems rather than personalities. And we have made this clear consistently, even in our notice to the police. We said that we're organizing the march on the back of a string of consistent broken promises by successive governments. And that we were exercising our constitutional or democratic rights by the consistent refusal of government or inability to fix the country. That is what it is about. So it's about structure, and it's about what this country stands for. Now, for me personally, having a sense of history, I know that it's been over half a century since our founding fathers and mothers decided to give unaccountable governance and a government or governance that doesn't deliver on its promises a decent burial. Now we are here. A lot of the young people who are speaking now are younger than the 1992 Constitution. So these are 1992 Constitution babies who want a country that secures and guarantees for them the opportunities that the Constitution promises them. This is a new class of people who see that document as validating the ambitions and the vision of a country that does different, that engages them differently. So there's consistent attempts about bring a list of demands, bring a list of what, for what purposes? Occupy Ghana gave Ghanaians a list of demands. Have we fixed those? The Auditor General report comes out every year with so many issues. Have we fixed them? I was part of the constitution review process. The recommendations were made in that document continue to lie and gather dust. Have we fixed those? So how are we then, on what basis are we asking for new federal list of demands? That is we need, if there's anything important in this conversation that we need to start from, is the fact that we need to start from a place of honesty and acknowledgement that something is wrong, systemic with our democracy. And if we get that sense of acknowledgement on the same page, we can have conversations about that things.
Okay, we'll take a quick break and return to look at the aspect of the injunction. And I think we have a wrong designation there. Convener, not conveyor. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And I must apologize in advance that we may not be able to deal with the two other issues that we have tabled because we clearly understand what this is about and the need to exhaust this matter. So I'm going to get to appreciate what the end game is. What is the end game now that the demonstration has been sort of aborted by an injunction? This show is brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN, everywhere you go, Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa, Waylead Properties, home is where one starts from, having mosquito spray and coil, pleasant on humans, tough nightmare on insects, and Upper Foods, it is tasty. DBS Industries, we truly are your roof experts. Robert & Sons Limited Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care services provider. So let's begin this section with Godfred Dame, who is the Attorney General. and Minister of Justice. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. Hello, Mr. Dami.
Hello. Hello, Samson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so what do you make of what's going on?
Your, and cherished listeners and
yes,
your guests at the studio.
All right. What will be your specific intervention?
Right. I think that first and foremost, I sought to intervene because there has been the creation of an impression by the convenience of the Ghana that some amount of trickery and deception was deployed by the government of Ghana in asking them to meet the ministers on Wednesday or Thursday, I think Wednesday. And I'll have to place on record that there was no deception, no trickery at all. And if indeed they were supposed to meet the IGP on the same day, I would want to believe that there are different meetings that they were supposed to attend. And the meeting with the IGP definitely was distinct and different from that the one that was arranged with the ministers. Indeed, I was not even aware of any meeting with the IGP at all. So there were different levels of engagement, and must be placed on record. And as was answered by the gentleman that you spoke to, the IGP was not even at the meeting that we were talking about. So clearly, if there had been any prior arranged meeting with the IGP, that was for a different purpose and was also a different meeting. It could not have been true that they were made to believe that they're going to meet the IGP only for them to be tricked into meeting the group of ministers. I think that the meeting with the ministers was actually just for one purpose. This government, in recognition of the fact that security issues may have a bearing on good governance and economic matters and whatever, has formed what can be described as an interministerial committee of ministers responsible for national security. And that committee includes the Attorney General, includes the Minister for Finance, includes the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Because as I said, we appreciate that when it comes to matters of security, it can have economic undertones, it can have good governance implications and whatever. So really, insofar as the grievances that were allegedly stated by the conveners of First Ghana bordered on an address of economic issues, it was found necessary and imperative that that committee met with the conveners. And indeed, I got the notice of the meeting at a very, very short notice. I got it only about 30 minutes before. I was home preparing to go to work when the Minister of National Security called me that they had taken a view that this activity by the First Ghana is one that warranted our attention. Therefore, we ought to meet them and see the best way of resolving the issue. I even had a meeting with the American ambassador. For that reason, I was even late for the meeting with the American ambassador. And that is because I found the concerns of the Ghanaians more important than any diplomatic or courtesy call that was to be made by the American ambassador. So we attended the meeting, and I would say that, contrary to what they say, clearly there was even exhibition of bad faith on their part. And I'll say so for two reasons. The bad faith was exhibited by even the leakage of what was transpiring or what was occurring at the meeting to the press while the ministers were meeting. I think that it's a matter of public record that while the ministers were engaging them, they were actually leaking accounts of what was allegedly occurring at the meeting to them. And I saw on social media, I had to leave the meeting because, as I told you, I had a meeting with the American ambassador, so I left the ministers a little earlier than the time the meeting ended. So I left to go. At the time I was leaving, there was no foreign minister at the meeting. There was no national communications director. If they came to the meeting later, perhaps that was the case. So I was quite surprised when I got to my office only to receive a WhatsApp message from some colleagues of mine to the effect that these people had reported that this was what was happening at the meeting and the foreign minister was there and that kind of thing. I think that clearly it's an exhibition of bad faith on their part. The response by the government of Ghana in attempting to engage them was one that was well intentioned, was one that was well meaning. I have been a convener of forums, various forums which have led to demonstrations of this nature. The Alliance for Accountable Governance was founded by myself with other citizens of Ghana, Dr. Free, Samuel Oku, whatever. At that time, we led demonstrations, and we never even met the IGP. So indeed, when the Minister of Financial Security stated that the government had considered it necessary for us to meet them. I found it very, very noble. And indeed, I stated to them that I thought that this engagement was very much in order and was, because if all governments had exhibited this kind of responsible reaction to concerns of citizens of Ghana about the economy, about the energy sector, and whatever, I think that the country would really have been much better off. So when such an engagement is taking place and people will be leaking. And then another reason I said that they also acted in bad faith was that when I was there, unless the situation changed, when I was at the meeting, after I had spoken, I said, well, I think it's good for us to hear from them. Therefore, we refused to talk. We refused to speak. One of the persons who came to meet us refused to speak. And is that the way to engage? They're talking about engaging the government and whatever. Yet, they came to the meeting, the ministers put forth their concerns and reactions and how they thought that this demonstration perhaps ought to be deferred on account of the COVID-19 crisis. They refused to speak. And now they come on radio just minutes after they leaked a report of what was happening at the meeting into the press. I think that is a bad faith. Indeed, we examined the motives for the demonstration. If you look at the letter that they wrote, the main purpose for the demonstration is stated on page 1 of the letter. And I found it a little bit out of place that they will be holding a demonstration in the teeth of the COVID-19 crisis on the back of these concerns. The purpose of the demonstration is stated here. It says the event, which is a single-purpose event, is being organized on the back of a string of consistent broken promises by the city government. So you see, something, it's quite clear, it's eminently clear that the concerns which allegedly resulted in the presentation of a request to demonstrate was not really on account of any immediate or compelling factor. They were complaining only about a string of consistent broken promises by the city government. And I would clearly infer that it means they were complaining about things that occurred or about failures in the part of Ghana since 1957. And if that's the case, my simple answer is that then it means that the demonstration at this time is not imperative. It's not compelling at all. We are in the teeth of COVID-19 crisis, and we yet to know of any country where demonstrations are allowed. Indeed, any country where demonstrations occur at this time,
America,
it is always a reaction to very compelling circumstances.
we have had Black Lives Matter.
I'm coming to that precisely. That's the question. That's the point I'm making. That indeed, George Floyd's death. Oh, I'm coming. My son. I'm sorry.
That's understandable. You are home, and the
murder of George Floyd led to these agitations around the world because of the general understanding, general outrage that was evoked by the murder of George Floyd, and that was something that really was very compelling. So, unlike this situation where there was any specific preach or any specific factor which would account for the demonstration, there's actually none here. You're talking about single consistent broken promises by the state government. It's not like George Floyd's speech, which sparked outrage and revolts around the world.
Okay,
that's the first point.
Yeah, if I may ask you just some two questions. First, is it a suggestion that whilst all these meetings were going on, you were unaware that there was another leg of seeking an injunction to stop them?
No, but so I would say that the injunction is applied for and was obtained within the premises of the Public Order Act. Indeed, and the Public Order Act places the burden on the police people to make such an application. So this engagement by the government of Ghana had nothing whatsoever to do with the application for injunction that had been filed or had been commenced by the Ghana Police Service.
No, you just accuse them of bad faith.
Yes.
And here you are, whilst meetings are going on, at the same time seeking to get a compromise, there's a court injunction that is being procured.
Yeah, but that is not that. The injunction was an necessary consequence to the developments between the Free Ghana people and the police service. The Free Ghana people had presented an initial request for demonstration. The police had advised them on that and said that in the light of COVID-19 crisis and what have you, it was not necessary to hold a demonstration at this time, and that they had advised them to defer the demonstration. The Free Ghana people had indicated a defiance of that directive. They said, we're not going to comply. And if we're not going to comply, the necessary step under the Public Order Act. It's for the people, if they found their situation to be more compelling, to apply for the injunction, and that's what they did. So, but I'm saying that does not divest the government of Ghana of the opportunity to engage the people. And I'm saying that the government of Ghana indeed recognized that it was very necessary and imperative that the people ought to be engaged. And I would, without any attempt to praise our government, say that it really represented a very responsible way of addressing the issues. Because we recognize that the issues that had been raised by the people, but clearly matters that bordered on the economy, good governance, and what have you. And therefore, the first forum ought to be a consideration by the Interministerial Committee responsible for national security. And I said that committee includes the Attorney General, includes the Minister for Finance. I would really wonder why anybody, with all respect, would be having about that.
Okay, they have a suspicion that their telephones, one of them, their telephone is being compromised, and it will be done by the state.
So is there any evidence to that effect? I mean, when I was in opposition, even whilst I've been in government, I also perhaps even had that concerns. There's no evidence at all to that effect. So I think that we should not really be encouraging such speculative and dangerous assumptions and assertions by certain people. Really, yeah. And indeed, the ex-party order that was obtained, I believe that we are going to go into a discussion of that. I would say that, yes, on the face of it, it seems that it exceeded the 10 days allowable in the case of an ex-party injunction. But there's no cause for alarm at all, because the rules make specific provision for that. Order 25/9, as far as I recall, it's clearly to the effect that where an order was obtained ex-party, it can only last for more than 10 days. And decisions by the Supreme Court organized to that effect. So even if you obtain an order and on the face of it, it's supposed to last until the termination of the action or until the occurrence of a situation which seems to be indefinite. The law actually says that it is supposed to be curtailed after 10 days. And that's it. After 10 days, the people ought to apply for an extension of the injunction. So I do not think that we should really be splitting hairs over.
No, but the order, the clear terms of this order is until the restrictions have been lifted.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying, that the Order 25/9 makes provision for that. It says that even if such an order is obtained, the effect is that it will last for more than 10 days. So it's my understanding, and of course my advice as the Attorney General, is that this order clearly will last for 10 days. And within the 10 days, the police service, if they are mindful or if they are minded to extend it for a longer period, they have to apply to court.
So the judge's order is incompetent.
I'm not saying it's incompetent. I am saying that it is competent, but that it to properly be construed to last for 10 days. That's what Order 25/9 says. That if an order is made ex parte, necessarily it should last for 10 days. And therefore, by implication, it really will last for 10 days.
So you are saying that the judge has exceeded her power?
Never so. I am not saying so. I am saying that...
Yet, we shouldn't look at what she has said, but we should look at what the law says.
Because there's a decision of the Supreme Court of Ghana which says that even if an order is made and it is stated in terms as to last for more than 10 days by any court at all, it will be construed as lasting or operating for only 10 days. Simple as that. All right. That's the point I'm making, that it will be construed as operating for 10 days.
Okay.
It does not mean, so any attempt to implement the order beyond 10 days will be irregular, and any person can go to the Supreme Court of Ghana to quash it by statutory right.
All right.
But within the 10 days, it will be valid.
Okay. So thank you very much. My very last one, I can see the kids are quite, troubling you. They need your attention. Now, very finally, what do you say when Justice Dennis Ejay, sitting as an additional High Court judge, gave the decision in the Let My Vote Count Alliance against the police and the Attorney General, and said that these applications ought not be made ex parte. It should not be made on the blind side of the other party. And it doesn't make legal sense to use an ex parte injunction process to initiate an action and use that same thing to terminate a case. In this case, that's what has happened. What do you say to that?
I have two responses to that. First and foremost, said Dennis Ejay even though he was a qualified preacher at the time, he was delivering the ruling as a High Court judge, and therefore it's a High Court ruling. And by the operation of the doctrine of judicial precedent, a decision or one decision of a High Court is not binding on another. Indeed, they are all courts of coordinate jurisdiction, and therefore another High Court can also seek to depart from it. And secondly, I would also say that I do not think I said that J, with all respect, was right. It was not right because the injunctions, there's a specific rule for injunction under the laws of Ghana. Order 25 of CI 47 makes provision for injunction and clearly makes provision for the filing of an ex parte injunction. Now, if indeed it is right to seek an ex parte injunction in a land matter, a property matter, which also affects somebody's property right, how can it not be right to seek an ex parte injunction in a particular situation where another right of another citizen?
In a land matter, it is not the ex parte application that initiates. It is not the originating process.
Yeah,
but in this case, that is the originating process.
Yes, I understand. But I'm saying that in this situation, the process is also by a motion, an originating notice of motion. And indeed, if we were actually to construe the rules in the manner in which said and J, with all respect, has done so, it will lead to chaos. Why do I say so? Take this specific situation in question. The Fixed Ghana people issued a notice to the IGP on 4th May. I believe I'm correct. Then the 4th May was Tuesday. They gave notice that they were going to hold a demonstration on 9th May. So 5 days. Now, the principle within the premises of the Public Order Act are supposed to react to the notice by the Fixed Ghana or any other potential demonstrator, if I may say. The following day, the police service writes to the Fixed Ghana people, drawing their attention to the impracticality and indeed the health hazards that would be occasioned by the holding of a demonstration on 9th May, because we are still in the COVID era. There's a risk of a spike in COVID and whatever. That's legitimate, no doubt. Now, the Fixed Ghana people then also, within the premises of the same Public Order, have the burden to react to that directive by the principal. They reacted maybe on the same day, which is Wednesday. Now, are you saying that if the notice is given to the principal on Wednesday and the court only have up to Friday to work normally, the principal are supposed to file a motion on notice and serve it on the Fixed Ghana people when they have indicated that they're going to hold the injunction on the Sunday, which is the weekend? and clearly, we know that notices served on people must have 4 clear days. I believe I'm correct. You must have 4 clear days of notice. So why are you going to obtain that 4 clear days? 4 clear days of notice. That's what I'm saying. That in this head and case,
but all those rules we know can be right. All those rules we know can be abridged. And you have heard me celebrate a case you and I did, and in a matter of 1 week, a whole case was done in the High Court.
Yeah, but that abridgment was actually on notice to you, remember? In the MVP matter. We notified you, and there was a motion before it was abridged, and the hearing took place within 1 week. So if you are going to go by all these processes, can you actually deal with the concerns of the Fixed Ghana people before the Sunday? So I think that it's impractical, and I think that Teddy's ruling, of course, is a ruling by a High Court of Ghana. I mean, clearly cannot be binding on another High Court.
Okay, thank you very much, Godfred Dame. Godfred Dame is the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Let me come back to my guest here. So let me continue with Oliver. Oliver, so what do you say? I haven't heard the Attorney General. He says in plain language, even though, as I ask, he will not like the way I put it. He says in plain language, clearly, that there's something wrong with the decision of the injunction. That despite that, you should treat that injunction as terminating in 10 days. So from the 10th day, unless they repeat it on notice to you, you have the freedom to decide whether to, go on your demonstration or what you do. What do you make of that?
Samson, do you mind if I address the accusations of bad faith first, or I should respond to this directly?
Proceed.
So, first of all, he said that we had accused us of bad faith because in his claim there were two separate meetings convened, one with the IGP and one with the ministers. Now, you have, and everybody else who has followed us on social media, my page on Facebook especially, you would know that we put out the information that we're meeting the IGP even before the day. So we have released and be transparent about every meeting we have. Now, who fixes a meeting without informing the other party to the meeting? He himself claimed that he got notice of the meeting 30 minutes before the meeting. So at which point were we informed of that meeting? We were taken by the police and were on the way to meet the IGP, and they told us that the plans have changed. So let's put that on record. Secondly, he accuses of bad faith that, sorry, you want to say?
I suspect you were going there. I was going to say, I think his point of bad faith is that whilst you were in the meeting, you were transmitting what was going on in the meeting.
Secondly, you would remember regarding that accusation, you would remember that we had put out a statement that for 2 hours we hadn't heard from our representatives and that we were worried. And so we're going on a media blackout till we hear, but we re-establish contact. And it is only when we finally did that we started communicating about what transpired at the meeting. So it is not accurate, and I have said that they took their phones away from them. It is not accurate that we were tweeting or reporting while the meeting was going on. It was only after that we reported on what happened. Now, secondly, he claimed that our representatives refused to engage and did not speak. Now, the Ministry of Information put out a statement where they said that the conveners in turn expressed, and I'm quoting, please let me read. The conveners in turn expressed their pleasure at the invitation and the level of seriousness with which their concerns have been taken by government. The minister and the group agreed to dialogue further. Does this sound consistent with this accusation of bad faith that we refuse to speak and engage the government? So, again, we have made sure that everything that goes forward, we put it out in the public domain. And we have expressed our uneasiness about this meeting, secret meeting, especially because I have said clearly that if we are convinced it's only by accident, there's over 600,000 people online who are speaking and talking to the government. To treat us as a specific group and invite us to form an interministerial dialogue committee secretly with you, it is a decision we cannot take. And we have learned from previous protest movements who have been corrupted by people who have projected themselves into certain platforms and use that to personal advantage. We do not want that. We have said clearly and online and transparently that it is a movement without leaders. And so if you want to engage voices, you have to engage those voices correctly. So let's get to the question about the injunction.
Yeah.
First of all, we would treat that injunction as patently as unconstitutional as it is, as an order of the court. Because in all this, we want to proceed with much respect to our democratic system. We are unable to pick and choose how we apply it. The judge was aware of the civil procedure rules when she made that order. She was aware of a Supreme Court decision, even in NPP and IGP, and it's not only in the Mr. J's case. One of the judges did mention that you cannot get those orders ex parte. She was aware of the constitutional authority. So to invite us as treating it as lapsing after 10 days, then we might as well completely disregard the order for being patently unconstitutional.
But you know that according to law, the fact that a judgment is bad or you feel that a judgment is invalid does not give you the right to disobey it, because if you disobey it, you suffer the consequence of contempt. What you have to do is to go to court to set it aside before you can go on.
Absolutely. And that is what we have engaged to do, where we have made an application to try to set it aside. And we're given a 1 month to appear before the Supreme Court to argue the matter. And we have said that we are filing an application for abridgment of time to bring this forward.
Okay.
So we respect.
Please explain that. Please explain that. You have initiated a process to challenge this decision of the High Court?
Yes. Our lawyers have filed an application at the Supreme Court invoking the supervisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, saying that the order on its face is patently unconstitutional and breaches even rules of natural justice by failing to give us a hearing. So that has been filed, and the registry has given us the date of June 8th for us to appear to argue the matter. We feel that giving us 1 month to argue a matter which is urgent and which by when 9th of March passes, we would have been substantially deprived of our right to demonstrate on a day of our choice. We are going back to court, and unfortunately, by how things have turned out, we would not be able to go on the streets as we would have preferred without breaching the order. I would go back to court and ask the court, please bring that forward so we can argue the matter and be heard appropriately.
Why are you not paying attention to the circumstances we find ourselves? COVID-19. Of course, earlier, the police had referred you, and the basis of their quote-unquote refusing your request. And I have taken too many times to give this education. I don't know how else to do it. The police, according to the Public Order Act, is to be said to make a request. So when people bring a notice to you, they are not making a request. So police cannot be writing back to tell you that they are not accepting your request. I don't know why they don't get this legal language correctly. Now, they said that they are unable to make themselves available to police your process because of COVID-19 and restrictions imposed by EI 13, is it 9?
95.
Yes. Once again, they were wrong because that's expired, and there was actually an EI 37, which was made in February 2021, which also expired, and the latest EI is EI 135. I think I have it, and that is the latest from the 29th of April 2021. Why do you feel that you should be going on a demonstration in this time of the pandemic?
So, Samson, thank you for the opportunity to address this particular question. In our opinion, when Parliament gave the President the power under the Imposition of Restrictions Act to determine periodically circumstances under which or what measures should be taken with regard to the pandemic, we believe that the President will exercise that power judiciously and fairly. And in our opinion, we have said that we do not believe, and the Constitution does not allow, a blanket withdrawal of all constitutional rights, even in the public health emergency. The most important thing is whether to ask ourselves, is it possible for this constitutional right to be exercised in the manner that does not lead to a significant concern for, in this case, public health? And that is what we want to engage the police and institutions on. And that is why when you take our notice, in giving the notice, we do not ignore this question. We note that the government, since COVID has happened, has not provided any guidelines on how exercise of constitutional rights under Article 21, which is the right to protest, can be held and while observing the COVID-19 protocols. Nothing of that sort exists. So we took our time and went through all international best practices and guidelines that exist elsewhere and developed a comprehensive guideline of how we propose to do this. Now, mind you, we believe that the exercise of constitutional rights is a responsibility on the government. So it is the government's responsibility to enable us to exercise that right and provide the framework within which we can do this. Not including in setting out proper guidelines, but also ensuring that those guidelines can be met. That is how we wanted to engage and have a conversation with the governmental institutions. And that is why we set forward our plan, which was reviewed and prepared with public health officials advising us, hoping that the public health officials of the government as well would engage us in the substance of those as to what is feasible and what is not, so that together we can make citizens exercise their rights. Nothing of that sort has happened. So, if all constitutional lawyers agree that the Constitution doesn't get kicked out of the window and it doesn't get completely suspended, even in a public health emergency, then what have we done to show how concretely it can be done to allow citizens to exercise their rights? Now, we gave two examples. We said that the government has consistently held public gatherings even throughout this period. And the government's own public health officials have gone on to explain to us that political rallies held in open air do not carry any significant risk of COVID-19 infection. Those are the government's own public health. This is the director of Ghana Health Service saying this.
But political rallies were held in breach of the law.
Now, you could look at that and argue that. And I was looking at the government itself and for them to tell me whether they breached the law and believe themselves to breach it. So the Minister of Information goes on there and says this does not happen. This did not happen because they believe that it did not lead to significant growth in infections. So in their own estimation and reading of the law, they believe that it's possible to hold public gatherings that comply with the public health directives. This is their own word, and we want to take them on their own word.
Yeah, but how are you going to do a demonstration in compliance with COVID protocols if you are using examples such as registration of voters? Isn't that better managed, registration of voters and voting, than a demonstration?
So what we have said one of the things we have said in our reply to the police is that we would have been happy to be engaged on even how technology can be used to control this. One, through a pre-registration of people who will be allowed to participate in the protest. We'd be happy to engage that. Two, of a pre-screening using a QR code that people would scan and be admitted into the grounds. We'll be happy to do this. Three, that people will be socially distanced throughout the process. We'll be happy to comply. Four, that the only individuals that can stay together are people who are from the same households. These are some of the substantive ways in which we have tried to find ways in which people can still observe their rights and their democracy while still respecting public health guidelines. Like I said, none of this, I am a lawyer and I'm not competent in public health. And we have had public health professionals, and if you ask me, we would bring them forward who have helped us craft this. Our hope is that in the democratic conversation, that the institutions of state will as well participate in that conversation with us and how to fine-tune it and make this possible for citizens to do.
All right. I'll return to you very finally to tell us what next. What is next for you? Beyond going to the court, you have been given a date in June. You are not excited about. You are seeking to bring the date forward. The Attorney General's advice to you is that he's Attorney General. He's Attorney General of the realm. He says that treat this ruling as expiring on the 10th day. You say no. Of course, you are also aware of judgment that says if a decision is given and you don't like it, you can't on your own get up and disregard it unless you have come to set it aside. Kofi, what do you say about the processes, meetings that were called, and also the injunction that was obtained, the accusations of bad faith here and there? But it must be stated correctly that Godfrey Dame has said that he left the meeting at a point. So we are clear that he was not in the meeting throughout and would not have known whether or not the Fix the Country representatives spoke later. Yes, Kofi?
Yeah, very well. So, not to go too deep into the issues, but point number one, I think that convening a high-powered meeting, even without notice, in my view, was a sign of respect. And I speak as one who has been in that kind of situation before. If during our time we had the ministers meet us and speak to us, maybe things would have gone in a different way. So my view is that that was a show of respect, and I think that should have been taken advantage of. Number two, and very importantly, this whole issue of taking people's phones, especially within the national security sector, and then also cloning them is the reason why we went to court, okay? And what happened. And that is also the reason why we should look at the cybersecurity law very, very carefully. It is a breach of rights. And I agree with Oliver if he says he's going to take it up. You have my support on that. Now, let us be clear also on this thing. Look,
now, Kofi, maybe some members of the public will benefit from this. You and I were at the National Security recently. I left my phone in the car. I won't even bring it to your premises for you to say, put it down here. So people can learn that they will take your phone from you. Yes. So don't take it to the premises. Okay, go ahead.
People can learn. There are times when I've left my phone in the car. It's useful. There are times when, look, I have gone into a meeting before and I was arrested. All right? So there are times you need your phone there. And then there are times you forget. There are times when I'm making the decision sometimes that if you invite me for a meeting and I get there and I have my phone, you have to trust me that I will not misuse it. And if you insist on me not taking my phone, I will leave the meeting. So I don't want us to go too much into it, but the point there is this: whether they take your phone or they do not take your phone, the whole point is they are afraid of what you are going to use the phone for. Public officers must appreciate that it is within our rights to record them in their performance of public duties. And when they take the phone also, they must not breach our rights, our privacy, as enshrined in the Constitution. So that's another issue. Look, in our case, again, I'm trying to show the difference between then and now. And I don't mean to say this demonstration is not necessary, but I just want to say we need to build. In our case, we were prevented, we were beaten during, okay? And whatever happens, I hold the view going into the demonstration itself that the court order is void. And I also hold the view against those who say it is not binding. That is the whole point of stare decisis. That's the whole point of precedence. Yes, it's an analogous court, but until the other court has good reason, properly reasoned out, okay, argument to depart from the original position, they must follow it. And in this case, I see no good reason. You and I know that before you go for an ex parte, you must convince the judge that you need to come ex parte. And there was no such need because you have been in touch with the people. Oliver and Co were around, you know them, you were talking, speaking to them. I think that is bad faith. So the judge shouldn't have allowed it. Now, having allowed it, that 10-day issue, look, an order can be void by virtue of vagueness. Just here on this show, the Attorney General himself has said, oh, he believes it's a 10-day issue because of the Supreme Court ruling. On the order, it says it is not a 10-day issue. All of us are worrying about that. That is vagueness. So that order, I believe, is void just for the sake of vagueness. And it is clearly calculated to throw the demonstrators off. We need to appreciate that, look, anytime the state system, and I'm not saying the government per se, but the state system, police, whoever. In our case, we had resistance from chiefs and all kinds of, even University of Ghana. When you put that resistance on people expressing their constitutional right, you energize them. And I'm telling you, if Dennis allows that 1 month, by that 1 month, they will have more people involved, interested. So look, let them have their day. Let them have their say.
Are you concerned, though? Are you concerned?
And move on.
Are you concerned?
For me, that order is void.
Okay. Are you concerned that this manner of seeking injunctions, and remember, after the elections, the NDC wanted to have a demonstration, and a similar way, another judge granted an injunction scuttling it. Are you concerned that the constitutional right, which is a fundamental human right, has been rendered useless? The Constitution itself has been rendered useless by this kind of approach. And
this approach
whether or not
tries to render the Constitution useless.
Yes, whether
we should not allow it.
Yeah, whether or not you think that
go ahead.
No, Kofi, wait. Whether or not you think that what Justice Dennis said, that Justice Dennis Ajay said, ought to be the standard. And he said, first, these matters must not go on ex parte. Don't come on the blind side of the other party. Number one, they used to go to the lower court. Don't go to the lower court, go to the high court. And then he said, any action which is initiated ex parte under the Public Order Act is void. You just use the word void. Is void as it is filed contrary to law and procedure and would constitute a breach of the rules of natural justice. Now, as a lawyer, you understand the breach of natural justice. Once it happens, the court will throw anybody away once you have breached the rules of natural justice. He said, it will be unfair to use ex parte application to initiate an action whose outcome would affect the rights of other people, and once it is granted, the action terminates. Such a crude approach should not be encouraged in a democratic society, as the police in their ex parte application may depose to false information which may persuade the courts to grant the application. If this is what you subscribe to, how can we have this going forward so that the constitutional right in Article 21 will not become, defeated?
Thank you. Samson, I'm trying not to go too much into the law because I'm minded to speak to the general public. So here are the issues. What you've read is very important. The key issue there is that this is void it is void because of what has gone on. If we have time, I'll explain why it is void. How do we prevent this from undermining our constitution? We must disregard such void orders. So I encourage Oliver to go ahead and have his demonstration. And if they like, they should take him on. Look, I may not join them on a demonstration because I think it may be vague, okay? But if they are clubbed, they are beating, they are attacked, I will be happy to get up and go and defend them. So if you ask me, how do we do things in such a way as not to allow these things to, claw back on our constitutional right? Exactly what we are saying is this: go ahead and do your demonstration. If you are attacked, we will all rise to your defense. Because this whole idea of police going ex-party and trying to sneak things behind our back, etc., it will one day come to bite all of us. When you stop people from such peaceful demonstrations, you have an explosion. So in short, something we can do the details, but the point that the public must understand is that what the police did by virtue of the ruling in Justice Ejay's thing, and what very well reasoned, is not lawful. Okay. And it does not have the weight of law. It does not stop the demonstration. I think they should go ahead and test the law that way.
Okay. I told Oliver, you wait when I come. My very final question to you will include whether you think that this decision by the judge, which we now can see that is actually not compliant with the law that is to be used to grant such orders. Whether or not you think that in this regard, the judge has demonstrated incompetence, which is a grounds for removal from office as a judge. Let me see what you think about it. And let's not take some of these things lightly. An injunction and injunctions such as this in Nigeria led to a situation where elections were stopped midway. And because of that, a return to democratic regime was stopped. The military took over again and continued. So the dangers are there. Yes, Felix, what do you think should be the approach going forward, having listened to the input of the lawyers?
Look, consistency in the application of laws is what engenders confidence in the people, that any particular action or set of actions is grounded on good faith. We cannot have a situation where politicians like myself and Gideon and others hold mammoth rallies in the run-up to elections. Indeed, the Electoral Commission itself is given a dispensation to register millions of voters. Politicians hold rallies and events. The election is held involving millions of people. After that, we've had instances where a church service has been organized involving large numbers, thousands of people, on the blind side of the very security agencies who are supposed to prevent these gatherings. And indeed, something, it may interest you to note that 2 anti-Mahama demonstrations have taken place in the last few months without any consequence to those who organized it. And yet we have a police service that is supposed to be policing the system. However, when a demonstration is announced with the intention of demonstrating against hardships imposed by government, suddenly the police find their voice and they are able to go to court and obtain orders that prevent the holding of such demonstrations. Look, I think that government should allow this to flow. I get the sense that there is some panic that allowing this demonstration would inure to the disadvantage of government politically. And so all manner of shenanigans are put in place to ensure that it does not happen. It should be allowed to flow. The same way that the Electoral Commission was able to register people without an escalation in the cases of COVID. The same way that we held an election. The same way that we campaigned, that the Minister of Minister of Information says, did not lead to an escalation in the numbers. A way can be found. And indeed,
I've seen General of the Health Service.
Exactly. The Director General of the Health Service, who I believe is government's lead advisor in the fight against COVID-19, says that those gatherings did not occasion an explosion.
But did you believe that? And do you believe that?
Well, but the government that propounds that theory, or the state that propounds that theory, cannot be the same state that prevents others from exercising their right to demonstrate. Indeed, I have seen the application to the police, or the notification to the police rather, for this demonstration. And it's quite comprehensive. They go a step further to indicate what specific steps will be taken to ensure that we do not have instances of escalation of COVID-19 cases in Ghana. So, to cut a long story short, the impediments that are being put in the way of these demonstrators compounds a situation where they are already suffering. In other words, they are being prevented from crying after they have been punched in their gut. You cannot do that to any people. Again, Samson, it is imperative that in this analysis, we examine the responses of government carefully Indeed, Gideon has basically reiterated what the Vice President put out as responses to the demands that are being made by the people engaged in this campaign. With the greatest respect to the Vice President and my friend Gideon, these responses do not address the concerns that are being raised. People are saying that they are living under excruciating hardships. In my earlier submission, I disclosed to you what has caused the hardship. It stems directly from government's actions aimed at plugging financial holes that have emerged based on government's own actions and inactions in the run-up to the 2020 elections. The response that Dr. Bawumia has put up, or the responses that Gideon has put up, do not respond to these matters. For instance, the Vice President, in response to this, says that now you can purchase electricity credits via mobile money. Samson, how does that address the concern of the man who goes to the pump today and is paying far more than he did in the past? The automation of government services does not address the concern that is raised about hardships. Now, again, you must engage in this argument against the backdrop of commitments and promises that the same Vice President made when he wanted to be elected to public office. He condemned the imposition of taxes. Indeed, in that clip that you played, when he had that interview in the Joy FM studios, he said that taxes hurt the economy. And yet, as head of the economic management team, he has orchestrated the imposition of as many as 12 different taxes. Indeed, if you oblige me, I'll go through a few of them. Look, they increased VAT by 5% through the back door by separating the NHIL and the Get Fund. But essentially, it was a 5% increase in VAT. Until recently, there was a luxury car tax, which meant that if you use a four-wheel drive, you pay between 1,000 to 2,000 cedis, depending on your engine capacity. There was the 50% increase in CST, which was removed recently. There was the imposition of the 3% VAT flat rate. Indeed, on the average, we estimate that ESLA has been increased 27%. They extended the life of the fiscal stabilization levy, which is 5% of profit of corporate bodies, which was supposed to have elapsed on 31st January 2017. But because they extended it, it is a new tax. They did same for the 2% component of the special import levy. Now, in this budget, they've imposed a COVID levy. They've imposed a sanitation levy. NHIL has gone up 1%. They've increased ESLA again. They've also imposed a financial services sector tax, which is supposed to cater for the banking sector cleanup, which they tout as an achievement. Now, these 12 taxes have combined to have the effect that it is having on the people of Ghana. So when they complain, it is not automation of government services that resolves these issues. Again, my friend Gideon went through a litany of examples of what he says are factories that they built as a response to this.
Okay. So we don't want to get there, and we clearly understand. We clearly understand that fix the country is the ordinary Ghanaian citizens' campaign, and it is not for the purposes of MPP NDC comparing their track records. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first, and it's brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go, Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. We Lead Properties, home is where one starts from. Heaven mosquito spray and coil, pleasant on humans, tough nightmare on insects. And Napa Foods, it is tasty. DBS Industries, we truly are your roof experts. Robert & Sons Limited Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care services provider. I'll go through just a couple of your messages and then get back to Gideon and to Oliver to begin the final leg of our discussion with. Collins Little Tete says, when the underlying structure of our freedom is in jeopardy, we do well to be concerned about our whistleblowers, since beacons are essential to secure a living together in a dependable social framework. Rich Anon says that we aren't in normal times indeed. Gabase Awuni says, I don't doubt Oliver Baka one bit on the illegal surveillance information he is talking about. Then you have Owura. Owura says, what people don't realize is that this Nana Akufo-Addo government promised to turn the country around in just 18 months. In one instance, Dr. Bamia said after 2 years, no household in Ghana will have a toilet or water problem. The problem is dishonesty. Ishaku Abbas says, how I hate comparison. God fix Ghana and its citizens. Okay. Somebody says, I have lost signal to Newsfile. I am suspecting the NCA has shut it down, or is it that I have trust issues? No, don't be too much in a hurry to do that. It could be just an internet problem. Reagan Jerry says, today, dear, Newsfile do all. Interesting discussions. Thanks for your messages. Now, as we close, what do you have to say? There must be a certain, process to bring this to a conclusion. Yeah. It doesn't appear they are going to back down.
Yes, I think the legal issues have been adequately dealt with by the lawyers, except to say that in the Attorney General's presentation, I didn't get a sense that he indicated the demonstrators at the meeting refused to speak. He had said that as at the time that he was there,
yeah, that's why
they did not speak, and then he left later on. I'm also reliably informed, I don't know, Oliver may check up with his people again, that their phones were actually not seized from the meeting, and that they entered the meeting with their phones, but that can be cross-checked. I just wanted to put that one out. I think you lawyers are very good at what the processes have to be, and at the end of the day, a court has given an injunction. I know that court rulings are not end in themselves, and so there are avenues to explore that somebody is not happy with the ruling. There are channels for one to go through to either set it aside or get it reviewed in some way. And I think all those opportunities are available for the demonstrators to explore, and that is something that I'll encourage them to do. Felix, in his response, tried to go back to the initial discussion and picked on the vice president. I must say
that messages we have received so far on social media, you're getting a lot of applause by your posture and how you are articulating the issues, unlike what some other guys in your government have done so far.
I'm humbled by that, right. And I'll try my best. I will try my best. So, Felix, I was a bit surprised that you said you don't know what digitization does in reducing the hardships on people, and that.
Well, you may have to enlighten me. How does that resolve the problem of the man who is buying food?
You see, the whole concept of digitization is to ease the business environment and the financial environment for people to be able to do things with ease. And so you may want to look at hardships in terms of your pocket. Somebody may also look at hardship in terms of access to government services and how easy the person is able to do that. And so you cannot discount the impact of digitization in reducing hardships on the people. Then you talk about the issue of imposition of taxes. I would take you back to history that we saw during the era, and I don't like to do this because this is not what people want to hear, that we sit down and do political comparisons and equivalence. But once you brought it up, I need to settle it. We saw during your era the inundation of taxes on Ghanaians to the extent that car licenses and condoms were all taxed. What this government has done is that in 2017, in the first budget of President Akufo-Addo, he was able to abolish or do away with as many as 15 different taxes. Okay? Just tell me, within the period, how many taxes were increased from 2017 to 2020? But rather, you see, taxes that have been imposed on Ghanaians, it's not a matter of what you think, it's a matter of what Parliament has approved. You understand? You cannot sit here and say that in your estimation. That is not it. What is important is to know that there has never been in the history of this country from 1992 that a government has reduced taxes more than this government has done. Even in this 2021 budget that we're talking about, that a few taxes have been brought to bear to Ghanaians. We have reduced a couple of taxes. For instance, we had a 30% rebate on the income tax due for companies in hotels and restaurants and education, etc. We also had a suspension of quarterly income tax installment payments for the second, third, and fourth quarters for 2021 for businesses using the income tax stamp. We had a suspension of quarterly income tax payments on the vehicle income tax for second, third, and fourth quarters. We had an extension of waiver of interest as incentives for daily payment accumulated tax arrears. And we had a waiver of penalty and interest on accumulated tax arrears up to December 2020. All these are in the 2021 budget. So it is not as though government has slapped taxes on people. We had said that we were going to run an economy in which we move from taxation to production to ensure that we spare growth. Of course, COVID-19 came and things had changed. The whole global economy had changed. And so we needed to look at other means by which we'll be able to run the economy through citizenry.
A quick question before we go. All right. So what are the taxes that you've imposed?
We did all of that. So I just want to situate the argument within the context that if we really want to talk about comparison in terms of which government imposes taxes on people to the choking level, this government is not so.
Oliver, let me get to Oliver. Yes, Oliver, I had asked you that question earlier because we have had, some give a discussion within certain, quarters suggesting that the constitutional provision about incompetence, this could actually border on that. And some say, why? Just leave it as it is. It is about what a judge wants to be remembered by. We have all been quoting Justice Dennis Ejay's decision in the Republic versus Circuit Court ex parte Giftiowari Abuaje and the Inspector General of Police and the Attorney General, because we celebrate it. Lawyers are excited about that decision because we believe that it supports the tenets of our democracy and our fundamental human rights, and that it is sound law. This decision will be quoted many years after that judge has left. So if a judge decides to give a decision that will not survive, say, a day, that's their business. What do you say?
Something, you know for a very long time that I have been having the conversation about why we need to subject the judicial system and the judiciary to scrutiny, because they are partakers of our democratic process and that they have a responsibility to preserve it. Now, this is a difficult question for me to ponder on. For a long time, I do wonder what is the best way in which we ensure judicial accountability while also recognizing their role as guarantors of our democracy. And I know that the conventional wisdom is to say that irrespective of what the judge says, irrespective of the content of the ruling, the only way forward is to go through the process of appealing the decision. Now, I have been pondering over this question as to, is there a framework or is there a way in which our mechanisms for disciplining judges and for holding judges to account goes also into the content of what they say, which then becomes a question of us looking critically at any decision that is made, whether it so offends our constitution that you cannot continue to be considered as competent to sit in our judicial system.
Sorry, but the answer to that is yes, because if you have followed the Chief Justice, Justice Eniye, if you have followed him, he's been very clear about that if you did something that borders on your incompetence, it is grounds for removal. It's not only misbehavior, that is grounds for removal. And so, we are clear that we are in a realm and a judiciary that, has been respected over the years in Africa and elsewhere because of the quality of the decisions of the judges. So if we're getting to a time where we can see that things don't seem to be good enough, why not?
You know, it's a conversation that I would want to, if the Chief Justice did say this, that I would want to take the Chief Justice up on his own promise and his own words. And that hopefully a lot of people who are looking at this can say that let us then test the growth and the potential for expansion of our democratic system by challenging and petitioning for looking again at the competence of this judge in sitting in our court system. I hope that other people consider that, and it's not to be vindictive, but to help ground our democracy better. And I hope that we look at that particular issue. If I don't know whether you come back again to me for my last words, but if not, I'll be happy to give it now.
Please go ahead. We are asking, so where are you going from here? I'm sure you are not going to take the advice from Kofi Bento. I'm not sure you are going to take that advice. That because it is void, ignore it and get on the streets.
Well, there's certain people who listen to lawyers when they speak. In my position and as a personal person, I think that we have so far decided to engage ourselves within the framework of the legal process. No matter how unjust sometimes the results may be, we will continue to place our faith in the courts. And that's why we've decided to try to overturn that decision. That's our position on that question. But even in respect, and I'll come to what we are going to do, but quickly, 3 points. First of all, Gideon said that he has received reliable information that our representatives went into the meeting with their phones. I am putting my integrity on the record. If it does, and I'm inviting all investigative journalists in this country to do this, if in that we do investigate and establish that our representative went into that meeting with their phone, I am prepared to resign from any coordination with this movement and being associated with it at any cost, because I do not want to taint the movement and what they are doing with my lack of integrity. And I'm urging him to make the same commitment that if it is established that in fact the phones were taken from them, that he should resign from his position. We need to hold ourselves as people who speak on behalf of people to certain standards. So that's the commitment I am making.
I think it's normal protocol. I think it's normal protocol when you go to the national security that your phones will. I think the word is about the seize. It's not really seizure. It's just taking them, keep them away, put them somewhere at the front office. When you come back, you take them up.
Exactly. All right. He said we went into the meeting with our phones.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't want to play semantic differentiation.
Okay. All right, Oliver, thank you very much. My guests have been Oliver Barker Vormawo, who is researcher, University of Cambridge, Faculty of Law. He is a convener of the Fix the Country campaign. Kofi Bento, displaying his rebel, says is lawyer and senior vice president, Imani Africa. Felix Kwachilfosu is former deputy communications minister and the NDC's parliamentary candidate for Abura Asebu Kwamankesi in the just ended elections. Dr. Gideon Boako is spokesperson and aide to the vice president. In fact, he's a lecturer at the KNUST Business School, currently on secondment to the office of the vice president. And he speaks for him, and he's a technical advisor to the vice president. Now, coming up is Joy Sports Link. They are discussing whether or not Ghana can meet the preparatory deadline for the Africa Games 2023. And you want to join because the guest is your best. Tomorrow, Sunday, 2 p.m., join me on The Law. We are discussing right of protest versus injunctions. And my guest will be Godwin Ja, who is a lecturer, Faculty of Law, GIMPA, and researcher, University of British Columbia, and DSP Efia Tenge Mrs., who is Public Affairs Officer, Accra Regional Police Command. Let's continue to educate ourselves. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanene. Good afternoon.